Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Well Podcast. Glad to have you back for another week. Matthew, what do we got on the chopping block today?
So we had a lot of information in the marketplace. A big announcement came out, and it looks like Jeff Bezos from Amazon is going to be stepping down.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean for the marketplace, and how does that, relate to a dental practice?
Holy moly, there's a lot packed into that comment and question, and I'd probably start first at Visionary. So let me just start there. So we'll talk about scalability, which is ultimately what happened, right? He's got scalability, which is what we teach and talk about, keeping a practice, scaling it, using it as an income stream versus just selling it off and getting a fraction of what you were getting. So Jeff Bezos is doing the Tower to Leadership model, right? And so when we start looking at this and say, okay, well, that's, Jeff Bezos will send you a bill for, our advice. No, I'm kidding. So
be on the lookout for it.
That's right. So first I want to talk about Visionary. I was thinking about this article when it came through, and I thought, what is the company without him? And then it kind of made me think about Steve Jobs. If you think about, when I say the word visionary, and I talk about visionaries and companies, I think people go automatically to this fluffy, this idea of this person who's like daydreaming in the clouds of like the future, and they don't realize like visionaries are what create great companies. It's seeing, if you look at, let's take Apple for a moment. So Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs passed away, Tim Cook takes the helm. Now we could argue financially that Tim Cook has done a good job financially. I mean, the company's been run well. They've been able to modify some.
Yeah, he's done the predictable way, which was opposite of what Steve Jobs would have done.
Well, right, because what has he created? So if you think about Tim Cook from at this point, what has Tim Cook created from a visionary standpoint? The answer is nothing. Yeah. I mean, even the M1 chip that's not a Tim Cookism, right? Yeah. He might have sat on a board and said, we need our own, we got to get away from Intel at some point. But that's not visionary, that's just tactical. And so we start to look at this and start to say, okay, well, you lost the visionary of the company, which is what made it so great. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have staying power. It just means, like, look at Apple without Steve Jobs. It's not the same company. It is a well-run company because of the amount of capital that they held, by the way. Yep. But it doesn't mean that they're, it's not the visionary company it once was.
Yeah. Just compared to like Amazon.
You look at Amazon. So let's go. Let's go to the visionary of the visionary part of Jeff Bezos, which is this idea of seeing that there was just the beginning vision was this idea that I see a bookstore. Yep. And we're going to relate this back to dental in a little bit, by the way, guys. So hang in with me. So I see a bookstore, and the problem is people are having to go to these bookstores to go get these books. So I'm going to start an online bookstore, and that way I can get books to people delivered to their homes. They start off with that idea. One of the only tech companies to make it through the bubble burst. And keeping in mind what he was doing, and if you look at the stories of Jeff Bezos, he's a visionary from the beginning. And he was able to not only start to get through that phase, the initial phase, by the way, took a decade, but so people in business aren't patient, okay? Just remember, he had to get through the tech bubble too. And then on the other side of that, he starts to go after, you look at today, they own Whole Foods and they have pharmacies and they, the company from a vision.
It's everything.
Yeah, it's music. It's
Audible,
it's everything, right? Yeah. So that's right. They own Audible. They have grocery stores. They've really put Walmart basically, in a tough position.
They have their own. I think a lot of people don't understand what Amazon did too, which they were using outside delivery services, UPS and things like that. Now they have a full-fledged arsenal of delivery trucks. I
saw the big truck come to my house yesterday.
And it says Amazon Prime on it, and you're starting to see more and more of those. And I think that's kind of overshadowed most of the time. That's
huge,
major.
And that's so you look at Jeff Bezos, and so my question is, how much does he play a visionary role still in the company? Because his role is a visionary. His role is to see what others don't see. His role is like Steve Jobs, to see the things that nobody else saw, to see where there's opportunities in the marketplace. Jeff Bezos is now, by the way, exploring other companies that he wants to take his vision to. Now he'll remain. This idea that he's going to remain with the company is yes, he'll make some decision making. And yes, he'll have a way in, but he's going to take his visionary talents. Jeff Bezos, just so you guys understand, it's not that he's the greatest CEO that ever walked on this earth. I don't think anybody would argue that he is, nor would they say Steve Jobs was. It's that they're visionaries. Visionaries create 95% of the jobs in this country. And so what happens is when people look at what visionaries do and they say, hey, I'm just going to do what they did. Well, the problem is that you don't realize that all those ideas that they came up with is what the company becomes. Now, what does that relate to dental? I think we got to bring it back to dental, right?
Yeah.
One of the first things I tell people is you got to have a vision where you're going. You have to know where you're going. You have to be a visionary in that what are you trying to do? We talk about exit strategies and things like that. It's funny enough. So if I had a doctor come to me who's $800,000 in revenue and I say to them, you got to create a vision for your business. There's so much struggle with that. They don't understand why they would do that. It's like, I want to be. By the way, they'll come up with vision. They'll say something like, we want to be the #1 dental provider. No, that's not a vision, okay?
I think a lot of times people get caught up with, like, they always push back and say, well, it's always adapting. It's always, I can't come up with a clear vision to start with because there's so many possibilities. And I think if, Jeff Bezos at first would have went and said he was going to do all of those things that he's done with Amazon at first, a lot of team members would have been like, what? We're not going to be able to do that. It's just getting something solid, concrete that you can focus on, even if it's for 12 months. I think it's where the big hiccup is with most dental practices.
Well, and I look at that and I go, well, when a doctor starts to get it to 3 or 4 million, by the way, maybe 5 million, we start to get to that place, they realize how important vision is. And had they had that vision at $800,000, how quick they would move if they had that. So what ends up happening is but once they started getting to multiple locations and 4 or 5 million, they start to go, oh crap, I need to tell people where we're going. And so you have, people don't put the urgency on it. They say priority determines capacity until they've reached a certain level. And I would argue what made Jeff Bezos so great and why he created such a great organization. And by the way, let's go to dental. Heartland Dental became what it is because of the fact that one man had a vision of being the biggest DSO in the world, right? I mean, that was his vision. And so he saw that and he executed it. This is this idea of creating a vision and executing it relentlessly. There's a quote that says, great leaders articulate a vision and relentlessly pursue it. And that's what those people did. And dental practitioners, first of all, they don't spend the time doing it because they're in the damn chair all the time, which is one of the things we try to get people out of is the dental chair. When they get out of the dental chair, then they're able to relentlessly pursue that vision. And so when I take doctors and I take them out, I have another doctor just once again who's out of the dental chair. We do it all the time. So now they're owning this business. And let's go back to the scalability part. So they have a vision. They get the team riled up around it. They know where they're going. By the way, you have to know where you're going. And then I get them out of the dental chair. And then what happens is there's a void. They're like, now what do I do? Now we go relentlessly pursue the vision, but we have to have scalability. Yeah. A lot of the really high-end doctors, so some of you don't start trying to do this tomorrow. It's a process, but a lot of the really high-end doctors, I will talk to them about someday putting a CEO in place or putting somebody who's going to run literally the company so they don't even have to show up. And that's so out. When you're in the chair 4 days a week, you can't see that. But it's like, don't you understand that if those organizations scaled enough that you could and if you had a system and a leadership team and knew your KPIs and were around it, you could get to a place where ultimately you showed up once a week for maybe a meeting and it would
or the board monthly meeting.
and people, when I say that, it's like, wow, it's so outside the thinking of so many people. But that's because I'm a visionary. And so I see like that vision. I'm like, why would you not go pursue that? Because the revenue coming off of this asset is so strong that you're never going to make as much from an investment standpoint putting in the stock market. So yes, now you might not want to relentlessly pursue that vision. That might not be your vision. But I would say that Jeff Bezos ultimately, he's created ultimate scalability, which is now I've got one of the largest companies in the world and I don't even have to run it. Bill Gates did the same thing. Yeah. Now Warren Buffett's taken a different approach. He likes to be in the day-to-day.
So Elon's doing the same thing.
I think you start to go, Elon's got a lot of scalability, but he definitely is in there because he loves to be part of it. So speaking of a visionary, great example of a visionary. What makes Elon Musk so great is he thinks bigger than everybody else. Yeah. That's not yes, SpaceX is huge. Yes, electric cars, but there were electric cars before.
Yeah.
There were electric cars back in the 1980s. I mean, it's not a new concept. He just did it better than everybody else, and he was first to market and mass production. He's drilling tunnels underneath cities. He's got now a Neuralink. He's putting chips in people's brains. He's
doing all kinds of stuff.
I think he's scientist.
Yeah,
right?
now it's like 2024 or something. He plans to have people on Mars and all this stuff. So it's like, it doesn't matter how far-fetched your vision is. I mean, Elon's tackling it. Like, he's going after it. He's got teams behind him, and he's running multiple different organizations at this point.
Well, and now let's bring it back down to the listener of this podcast. And I've said this to you before, which is, if Elon Musk can have a baby, create the most valuable car company in the world, and launch
Get
SpaceX,
people in space.
then certainly we can take on another project, which is this idea of, I think doctors get to this place where they go, well, I don't have time. What would Elon Musk do? Man, that's like the quote of the week. What would Elon Musk do?
What would he do?
He sure as hell wouldn't be seeing patients all day long, because he'd be like, they're only paying me $1,200 an hour or $1,700 an hour. Why would I do that when I can go create a scalable business, get out of the dental chair, and then let somebody else run this darn thing?
Yep.
And that's what doctors want. Now,
He had to scale it up.
to be fair, it takes work. Nobody saw, and this is the interesting part, nobody was there when Jeff Bezos was on his garage floor without a packing table, shoving books in boxes. And if you know anything about Jeff Bezos' background, he was highly educated. He's not some guy who just had a great idea. I mean, he is highly educated and highly intellectual. But he was on his garage floor packing boxes. Nobody saw that. They don't see that now. They don't understand what he went through. They don't understand the journey. They don't understand how hard he worked his ass off to get there. But yes, now he's one of the richest men in the world. If he hadn't got divorced, he probably would be the richest man in the world. But that conversation's up for another podcast. But it can't cost you half your wealth.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh. I got so many things I can say right now.
And he still recovered. I mean, sometimes when you get into it is a different conversation for a podcast, is how do you balance out both of them? I think Tony Robbins makes a living off of making sure that you're balancing out both the relationship side of it and the business side of it. Yeah. And he probably stumbled along the way. I mean, even he admits it sometimes. He's like, I was so focused in on this area that I didn't spend time on this area. So I think the important note on that one is figure out what in your vision you want to happen and then focus on those things.
Relentlessly.
But don't leave out those important things. So, if family's your number one driver, if your community's your number one driver, put that in your vision. Don't leave out little things, because you'll start focusing on those as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the problem is that if Elon Musk, let's talk about Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, great visionaries. What makes them different is, and I tell doctors this all the time, I'm like, why are you looking? The average dental practice grows at 2.5%. The attrition's enormous. Why do you look at the average dental practice and want to do it the way they do it? I don't even understand why you would do it that way. The average dental practice, this is what we just had an entire workshop last Friday on, this idea of how do you truly convert and keep and those types of things. So when you start thinking about that, you go, look, imagine them looking at everybody else. We'll hire somebody for $10 an hour to put up front. I mean, let's just take that for a second.
Yeah.
We're going to hire someone for $10 an hour. We're going to put them in front. And even though we know that we're losing $50,000 a month in revenue from patients that don't show up because we don't know how to get the phones, I don't want to pay them more than $10 an hour. It's like you're losing $50,000 a month, or cancellations, or we can go deep, but I'm just even like surface level. It's like what people do is they call up their friend Jim, the dentist, and they say, "Hey Jim, what are you doing over there? What are you paying? What are you paying the other doctors these days? What are you paying the other?
You bought an
hygienists?
operatory last year. You must be doing well.
Right.
So what are you doing?
So don't ask that person. They're in the same damn boat as you.
Yeah.
You got to think away. Elon Musk, if he had looked at electric cars and what had been out there, if the iPad had looked at, and I remember the day the iPad came out, they made fun of it.
Yeah.
The same thing they did with the iPod, by the way. The tech world destroyed him on the iPod. They did the same thing because, in fact, I will never forget. They said to me, it doesn't even have a stylus when the iPad came out. And he was, you know why he saw it and nobody else did? Because he saw a vision of what the iPad was going to be in the future, which it became. He knew it before the tech world did, because all the tech world knew what to do is look at what had happened in the marketplace and look
duplicate.
around them. That's right. And if you look at those tablet PCs, They were pieces of something, all right, and they were garbage. And so look at what he did. And the same thing happens. Dental practitioners are looking at what independent especially are looking what other doctors are doing and replicating a broken model that grows at 2.5% and saying, I'm going to do what this person did. That's not what visionaries do. And so what we can learn from this is this idea of going, what am I doing right now in my business that I replicated from somebody else that I did not create and who has not grown to the extent that they should have grown? Why am I replicating? I would look at everything. I would look at my complete operation and say, how can I be more efficient? How can I do it better than anybody else can do it? Now, you might say, when the heck am I going to get time to do that? Well, that's why you get out of the chair.
Yeah.
Because
then you could focus on those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, is that you're in the chair all day. And so if you don't know and you don't have a tactical team to help you get out of the dental chair, your financial advisor can't do it, accountant can't do it. So if you're stuck in the dental chair, you'll grow at 2.5% on average. And then, you'll wake up one day, you'll sell the practice off because someone told you it was worth a lot of money these days. You won't understand the true economic value of the practice. And then you wake up one day on a fixed income and wondering what the hell happened to your life. Well, that doesn't sound that great to me.
It doesn't sound like what Bezos did.
So there's a better way. And I think what we take from Jeff Bezos' statement down is it doesn't matter if you're a dental practice or you're Amazon. Scalability matters. And scalability matters in every business. And if dental practitioners quit looking at everybody else, the average dental practice, and started looking at scalability, just like the massive DSOs are doing, by the way. One of the reasons they're growing, yes, they do have capital, but they can't do it without scalability.
And I think Amazon, they'll take an initial dip for when Bezos leaves. They announce that, but it's still going to be the same. It's probably going to end up thriving. I mean, Apple did it. I mean, a lot of companies have done that too. So when you get out of the chair, you probably will see a little bit of a dip, but it'll ultimately come back. So your little hesitation that you're probably thinking, well, if I leave and I try to be this, behind the scenes guy, then my practice will go down. That's a fallacy. It's a story you put in your head. It will come back. Put the leadership team in place, put the scalability in place, make sure your practice isn't named, John Smith DDS, because if we were at BezosSolutions.com, it'd probably take a bigger hit.
I would agree. And so let's kind of bring this together. So this idea of one is, what is your vision for the practice? Where are you going? How are you, what is your vision to the team? What do you tell the team where we're going? How do you draw that out if you were to talk about it? And how does it inspire and motivate people? I think then the second thing is we start looking at it and saying, okay, well, there's got to be some type of scalability. How do I start reducing my chair time so I can focus on scalability and systems so that I can do that? And I would say, what am I copying from other people that I shouldn't be copying, that I copied? Like the idea of having a person up front who's responsible for just as much production in the fact of what comes into the practice as a doctor, paying them $10 an hour, then asking them to check people in and check people out and verify insurance is absolutely the most absurd, and I'm going to use this word, stupid thing I've ever seen. And I have no idea why dental practices do it over and over, because they saw someone doing it down the street who's still growing at 2.5%, and they decided to do what that person was doing. It is insane. It doesn't make sense. There's a better way to do this. So look at the vision, where you're going. Don't think like everybody else. Bezos never thought like everybody else. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, great visionaries do not follow everybody else. They look at a better way to build a mousetrap. They do it the better way. And then they talk about that vision. They get people to their vision. They push them there. And then what ends up happening is then they start creating scalability so they can spend more time focus on how to produce that organization that gives them that. And then they can impact themselves, the team, their community, and everyone else around them, which is eventually what Jeff Bezos will do, is spend a lot of time giving back. I just saw Elon Musk is giving back. I mean, these guys will give back when you get there. And that's my point in financial evolution, is talking about the fact of once you build this wealth, what you can do with it.
That's all Bill Gates does now.
Give it away. So look, go build awesome wealth. Start putting, if you don't put, we just had some doctors who were in and they were just like, we listen to this every week. We share it. We talk through it. There's a lot of doctors that are talking about this. Look, if you're not actually taking this podcast and writing some of this stuff down and doing it, or just putting it in your notes, look, things stay in place because repetition emergent. You got to go put this stuff in place. And so I would take a podcast like this and go put it in place, go do the work. And, and so eventually, yes, you do need a team of people who have the ability to do this for you, who can advise you on what the next steps are, because the next steps do matter. But first thing I'd start off with is a vision and know where to go.
I like it.
Thanks for tuning in. Glad to have everybody here. Share, like, subscribe. Glad to have you. We'll see you next time.